Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast.
On today's podcast, I'm pleased to say we're joined by Maurice van Rotterdam, founder of Sciential. Great to be speaking to another strong Netherlands-based company, and pleased to say that Sciential are also our digital marketing partner for CDMO Live as well. Maurice, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the introduction, Luke, and also thank you, of course, for the invitation to participate. Really a pleasure from my side. So excited to this conversation.
To kick us off, it'd be great to know a bit more about you, please, Maurice, and what inspired you to start up a digital agency focused in this industry?
Yeah, I started actually with a background in science. So I have a scientific background, studied biomedical sciences in Leiden, did a specialization in tumor immunology because I was really fascinated by, on the one side, how the immune system works, but on the other side also how we can solve oncology or cancer. That's basically where I started. Worked in the lab for a short period. Found out that the lab itself wasn't my thing in that sense. I think a lot of the listeners to the podcast probably has the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Shifted more towards commercial side of life sciences. Did a master's in that as well. And then from there, I started my career at a consulting agency in Amsterdam, helping innovative companies in Europe, but also in the US to attract funding via grants and also venture capital. That's really where I developed my passion for marketing, I would say. So as you can imagine, you need to write all these grants. You need to develop these pitch decks. And the thing I really enjoyed most there was translating the difficult or really the technical side of the business into easy understandable information in both visuals and text. That's all to do with marketing. So that's where I actually developed my passion for marketing. And then with one of my colleagues and also another co-founder that we met. So the three of us, we started Sciential. That's now 4 years ago. We started it in a broom closet. That's also what we call it still. And that's basically where it all started. My passion, that was really the passion for me to start in marketing, in life sciences. Also, if you compare it to other industries, we really saw that, at that time was, I don't know, just a little bit before COVID. There was not paying a lot of attention by the market in digital. It was more like mainly the in-person events. So it was becoming a thing. And if you compare it to other markets like fast retail goods, so one of my other founders, he has 14 years of experience in fast retail goods marketing. We were lacking a little bit behind. And I'm happy to say now that we're picking up the pace and it's going in the right direction in the whole market. So I see some good things out there at the moment. For now, I think my passion is really about how you could, in terms of marketing, how you could activate people. So, of course, the translational part from scientific or technical to, easy to understand, it's still something that I really enjoy. On the other hand, what really fascinates me in terms of marketing is how you can activate people to, download a white paper, to participate in a webinar, how to participate in, for example, an event like you're hosting yourself in Rotterdam later this year. That's really what triggers me at the moment and also drives me in my day-to-day role.
So why do you think then that the industry is lagging behind when it comes to digital? Because I've worked on both sides of it, so digital products and live events. Certainly would be my experience as well. In-person events have always been super important within pharma. I think probably because the subject matter is so complex and you really do need to have deep discussions. I'd agree, but it does feel as though digital has been, certainly pre-COVID, was lagging well behind other industries. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's used to be like that. I think COVID is a big game changer in that sense, because in those years, our industry had quite of a challenge because you can't go to these events and everyone is shifting towards digital, but not everyone had a digital marketeer internally, so they were outsourcing also a lot of the work. What we see now is that there is quite a unique kind of hybrid or a synergy that you can create between the in-person events and the online marketing. So I think if you compare it, and the reason why it was not never necessary is because there was a lot of business done on the events, and that was always the case for years. So nobody wanted to shift that because you did the business at the events. But during COVID and after COVID, we've seen that really the creating synergy between online and in-person events it's like a 1+1 is 3 instead of 2. So I think that's also why we see that a lot of companies are now also shifting towards more like optimizing their website. I think that's usually the first kind of step that they think about. But there's so much more out there that they can actually help to, get their message across and really stand out from the competition in the market.
In your role, Maurice, you must speak to a large number of CDMOs. That's obviously the area that you're really specialized in. What are the challenges which clients tend to come to you with? And do you see the same recurring challenges again and again?
Yeah. There are usually 3 questions. Mostly it's the first question, we need leads. That's usually the first kind of thing. The second thing is I think the most important one is like how to position yourself in a unique way. So really the branding and the unique positioning, including like a clear message. That's usually the second question. And then a third question that I get a lot is like, we have the leads, but how to nurture them down to like buying ready state. So these 3 questions I get a lot, especially the first one, getting leads. It's also something that I don't know. Until now, a lot of people or a lot of companies see marketing purely as a lead generator. I think it's also something that we see and probably also see it. It's like, I'm happy to see that a lot of companies, they also now see that marketing is not only to generate the leads, but it is also to nurture the leads. So what we usually see is that the first kind of contact points that could be on an event, that could be, a webinar that you host. It's a new email address. It's a new person. That's point 1. So that's your first contact point. And then the moment they sign a deal, not necessarily with you, but maybe with a competitor, it's usually 1 to 2 years, especially in the CDMO, CRO kind of industry. And we believe that marketing has a bigger influence than is expected in those 2 years. So that's basically what I usually give as advice. Use the 2 years to become a preferred partner rather than just distributing your content to new potential leads, but put effort in the leads that you already have and make sure that they become a fan of your brand and your capabilities.
Maybe we could touch on each of those 3 main areas. So if we start off talking about that general brand awareness piece and how to stand out in a market where often looks like when you're walking around a trade show, it very much looks like everyone's sort of like shouting out about exactly the same things. How can you generate a preference over competitors in that kind of crowded environment?
That's exactly what we see, right? If you walk around at CPHI, you see a lot of big booths and of course you see a lot of colors. That's also something that's changed, I would say. So you see a lot of bright new colors like orange, purple. I really like that. I think that's a good way to already stand out.
Not just white and blue.
Yeah, indeed. That's always the joke I always make when I see a company that is white and blue. Anyway, I think it's personally, I think it's really in the messaging. So of course, until now or until a couple of years ago, you could get away with just dropping. We have a 300,000 liter, kind of bioreactor or 30,000 liter bioreactor, and this is our capabilities. For now, what we see in changing is that it's more like the people behind. It's not only a one-stop shop because we all know these buzzwords and term dropping. So what we see is that, or what we usually recommend is that to personalize the brand, it's also something that in the end, people are talking to your competitors as well. So your ideal clients, they talk to other companies as well. And in the end, they're going to decide for the one they most trust. And it's not because, of course, you need to have the facilities to help them, but otherwise, I believe you will not be in contact with them. So in the end, it's all about the people that behind the company. And you need to translate the culture and how basically the soul of the company inside out. And basically that should be your way of positioning. That could be very personal, that could be efficient, but then you also need to explain why. So just being like, we're flexible, it's not going to work because that's what everyone else screams in that sense. And one of the most important points is that you share relevant content. So if you say that you're an expert in a field, you should also share relevant content, make sure that you're a top leader in the market. That's of course simple to say because it's very technical, very difficult kind of services that are usually promoted. So I can imagine that that's quite challenging, but there's also some frameworks, of course, to help that and make sure that you become that thought leader.
And I think it also gets challenging the bigger a company gets, whether that's through organic growth and the more capabilities they have. There's so many companies who say they're a one-stop shop, which takes you all the way through from molecule to market. I know some of your work has focused around that area, hasn't it? Around M&A. How should companies think about brand awareness as they're scaling and maybe they're not known for what they used to be known for?
Yeah, no, sure. It's what we see happening, right? There's a lot of deals going on. Also, if we look back at 2024, quite some deals that happened. So most of the times, when these companies they received or they did like a M&A trajectory, or for example, they combined multiple companies. So one of the examples we have in the Nordics is that we had a Nordic company. They acquired 6 other companies, and they wanted to build a new brand. But as you can imagine, these 7 companies in total, they all had established brands, and then you need to put that under one umbrella. And you have all these different kind of target audiences, right? Because you have all these different services. So I don't know, it could be about cell and gene, could be about viral vectors, could be about small molecules. So for each of these divisions, you need to develop a specific plan. You need to identify the target audience, be very relevant for that specific audience as well. Because in the end, you're the umbrella, but you also need to be exceptionally relevant for one specific target audience that you're serving. It's not just one message that will fit all. So that's also what we help them with, right? To really build a brand that stands out. It's unique also in terms of colors, but it's more that the messaging, it's very tailored between the branches under the umbrella in that sense. It's also one of the things we see, like especially when there's like PE steps on board of a company, then usually there's like, an aim for growth, right? That's usually why they step on board. So then it also like they're investing a lot in marketing. So what we usually see is that, of course, like you can do a lot more. So you can do a rebrand. So most of the times the trajectory is like we do a rebrand, we relaunch it, and then of course we push a lot of efforts into like sharing relevant content, make sure that you're visible out there, and also that people start prefer you over your competition. That's also why we developed our own marketing model, niche demand preference model, and maybe we can explain it a little bit later. But what it all entails is that you basically distribute relevant content for your specific audiences. And if we look at the example of the 7 companies that merged, you basically have still like 7 companies because you have roughly 7 different audiences. So you need to find a specific solution for each of the target audiences, and you need to define how to basically reach them with the right messaging. That means that you can also, or you need to A/B test a lot of a lot of times to really test how the content is interacting. Because if you're changing brands, if you start putting a lot of more efforts into marketing, especially also budget, I'm a true believer that you need to run a lot of A/B tests to see how, in terms of data, people are interacting with the new brands compared to, for example, like the old brand, or if you use different kind of new value propositions or unique selling points, you really need to test it. So that's also when we do these trajectories, what is a standard for us.
Underpinning all of that is finding the right audience. And it certainly isn't easy in this space where a lot of the times you're really trying to identify exactly the right person who's working on exactly the right type of modality at exactly the right point in their development cycle, because maybe when they get to phase 2, they've already chosen the person who's going to take them all the way up to a commercial stage. When it comes to big pharma, I guess there's more that you can do around targeting by job title or demographic. But certainly when it gets to biotechs, emerging companies, it can be really difficult, I think, to identify exactly who would be the ideal target audience, the target buyer for services. Be interested to know, how you think about that, how granular you should go with your targeting.
This is also a question that I get quite a lot. I think one of the examples I use is how we target for some clients of us that have a very specific niche audience. So an example could be like a company, it's a cell and gene, a CDMO company. They have their services, they want to promote that in Europe, but also in the US, because they're really early stage, right? So basically these companies, they're just a spin out, or so what we do is we in Europe, we defined all the major kind of groups in Europe where there's like, well, research in cell and gene in terms of like locations. And what we've done is we search for like, okay, you have all these hubs, right? So 80% of the biotech companies is only clustered in 10 hubs in Europe and maybe 4 in US, 4 to 5, I would say. So in terms of high over marketing, I would say, use these kind of things to make sure that you highlight yourself in these clusters, because that's likely so that these spin-outs are basically developing there.
So targeting geographically then around the hub.
Yeah, that's one tactic, of course. So if you're really early stage, the companies do not really exist yet. That could be an option. Of course, as a business developer, you need to be out there. So also go to events locally, and of course also like check which kind of companies receive funding, because that's available. So that those are of course interesting. If you go to a little bit more late stage, so then it's a little bit different. Then I would still suggest using the hub-based kind of approach, because you know that all the biotechs and basically your ideal clients are located in these hubs. But you can also, we're a big promoter of ABM, so account-based marketing. So make lists of these companies. So you have all these events, right? Tailor-made to your specific niche. If you have these attendees lists, you probably see also these companies. Make lists of these companies, and besides your general kind of marketing campaigns that you run over, for example, these hubs, you could also use ABM to really reach your most ideal clients. And that's also where, well, this is maybe the moment where I can explain a little bit the model. Is that,
sure.
Maybe it's good that after if we launch the episode, we can also. I will make sure to copy paste a visual of the model in the comments.
Yeah, perfect.
Speaks for better than I can probably explain. But on the one side, you have like a pyramid with like different segments. We have 5 segments. The top level is basically your most ideal client, probably like someone that has funding, is in the exact same phase that you can help them. But it's probably very difficult to get in because everyone wants to talk to them and they might already have a service provider. So what we do is we define really a specific group of most ideal clients with a lead time from like a year, half a year, earlier until now. And that's really the group that we identify with company names, and we also look for similars. So when we have that group defined, we basically go to the second stage of the model, and that's like a flywheel. So what we do first is we do a lot of research, or I would recommend to do a lot of research. Also invite people for like just a coffee to really learn more about what's happening in these markets, what's basically in your target audience, what's going on, what's their informational need. So probably they look at regulatory affairs, they have some challenges there. They might look at, I don't know, like capabilities for a CDMO. In these kind of ways, you can really identify the informational needs. So what I suggest then as a next step is developing like a buyer persona. And then, you can basically apply that to distribute using a content calendar, really high quality content. Instead of using white papers, which I still see being used quite a lot, I would focus more on generating 2 or 3 kind of 1-pagers or 2 pages. Keep it concise because everyone is overloaded with work. So the chances that people read 8 pages, I think it's fairly low, except for, of course, when it's very unique paper that you want to share, but rather focus like on small kind of content pieces, high quality, a good balance between scientific and also like, I don't know, sparkling kind of tone of voice. And in that way, you can also A/B test quite a lot. So when you distribute that, you create value. I'm a big fan also of non-gated content. I'm a believer that when people digest your information and they read about, for example, case study. I think a case study is one of the best examples to get them more interested in your company or your service. I dare to say that I would rather have someone just reading it and I don't know that someone read the article, then I just have an email address that you can send an email to and never respond. So in that case, I think that's the value that you're bringing. Yeah, so that's basically the model. You try to get it turning so people start to build trust and prefer you over others. Yeah.
A couple of points in that I want to focus on. So one of those is talking about compelling content still has that scientific backbone. I wonder if you could give some examples of like what makes really compelling content in your experience, and if there's any data points to support that, that would be really interesting. What does good look like for this kind of marketing?
Yeah, sure. I think there's also numerous kind of examples out there, and I believe we also shared once some information about it. But for each of the stage of like awareness phase in terms of marketing, you have different kind of content that could support your buyer journey or get them along your preference journey. Yeah, I mentioned one pagers, 2 pagers, and case studies, webinars as well to dive a little bit more deep. I would use the like stuff that you can read yourself. That's more like I would always so to give a couple of tips, especially when you promote it on LinkedIn, it should have like a very catchy kind of title, like I don't know, maybe like a quote or a statement that you have so that it catches the eye. I think that's because LinkedIn is overloaded with content at the moment. I think that's one of the things. On the other side, I'm a true believer of infographics. So put all the information into one infographic, have it on the one page, and just people can look at the infographic and translate it from there. What we see is that webinars are still very important, especially late stage buyer journey, because you're building up a preference with them, right? A personal connection. I think that's also one of the trends that we see or that we foresee for 2025 is like a personal connection. So it's not only sharing content, but it's also building the personal connection. And in terms of numbers, yeah, if you have a good topic, you invite people to a webinar, we really see the numbers of people or attendees to these kind of live kind of webinars increase quite rapidly.
On that point about personal connection, what have you seen or done that works well in that kind of space? Is it that you need to have someone working within the company, a subject matter expert, who is very, very active personally, and people tend to be drawn to or build a relationship with that person? Or are there things which marketing teams can do to create that similar sense of connection?
Yeah, sure. So the personal kind of trend that we see is, of course, that it's also something that is pushed a little bit by LinkedIn as well. So we see that companies on LinkedIn, when you post something on LinkedIn, we have the feeling that it's not distributed rapidly in that sense. I think you could better advertise. So what we see there is that if you have like an expert in a specific field, if they share specific content on their own profile, you really start building the connection with your audience. So from in our way of thinking, what we see is that of course you have these events, live events, but online you can also connect, right? So do it on a personal way, but reach out to your ideal customers. Just send them a message, say, hey, I know, we're having this webinar. You can join. Those kind of things. Really build a personal relationship, start a conversation with them. Not directly sales pitch, I would say. Stay a little bit away from the sales pitch, but more like a genuine connection that you can build. In terms of like email marketing as well, we see that, we expect for 2025 also email marketing will continue to be quite effective, although it needs to be hyper relevant. So just send all kind of emails not going to work. So what we would suggest, or what I would suggest, is segment in groups of 10 to 20 people and be very relevant. You can still use the same topic and roughly the same kind of outline of the email, but maybe tweak a little bit here and there to make it more personalized in that sense. So really build a personal connection with the audience.
And that's something which any biz dev team can do, presumably. You don't need to be an absolute subject matter expert in a technology to do that.
How we see it is like a triangle. So on the one side, you have the business development team. On the other side, you have marketing. That should be like a seamless kind of collaboration. We really see it like as a one team. And then on the other side, we of course also have the experts internally. And that's like, I would recommend maybe a meeting in every 2 weeks, something like that, especially in CDMO landscape, to discuss like trends or topics. It's also interesting, like the business developers, they learn when they go to events like CPHI or CDMO Live, they learn things, they distribute that to marketeers and also to the experts. They can have like in-depth discussions. And then usually when you sit I don't know, around the table, have a coffee, an hour, you get a lot of new ideas to share relevant and unique content, right? So yeah, that's something that we would definitely stimulate. And it's also that when marketing is writing something, of course, you have the expert that is providing his input to the specific topic, and it should be also a little bit more catchy. So it's good that also marketing can have it, for example, in the brand guidelines of the company.
Yeah, great. You also mentioned earlier around lead generation and how, I guess, a bit of healthy skepticism that pushing out forms and having people sign up and hand over their emails in order to download something maybe isn't the best way to go. I think that's a really interesting point because, there's plenty of companies out there who their entire marketing campaign is run and is measured by number of email addresses that they get. So interested to dig a bit more into that. Why don't you think it's the most effective way to go? And I guess as a follow-up to that, if you're a marketer who is being measured by the amount of leads in that form that you get, what do you do instead? You're kind of stuck in that model, aren't you?
Very relevant. So how I see it is that you have two kind of layers. On the one side, you have your demand generation campaigns. The other side, you have your lead generation campaigns. So for example, when one of the lead generation campaigns that you could think of is Google. So for example, if you advertise on Google, on other search kind of platforms, so people have a buying intent, then they need to find you. You're top listed in Google. They go to your website. They fill in your form on the website. That's like a general lead kind of campaign. It could also be like cold outreach. I still believe that those kind of campaigns are very relevant and also very effective. So that way, that's like the always on kind of advertising lead generation campaigns. And of course, also like if business developers reach out on LinkedIn or on events, that's where you also generate these new leads. On the other hand, I'm a real believer that when you do the demand generation campaigns and you let people digest the information that you're sharing without them need to share their email address, those kind of things, but rather have them, digesting the information, make sure that they see your brand multiple times and they download a couple of things. And of course, we now have like tools like HubSpot, Salesforce, Soho, where we can also, we see if someone once left their email address, afterwards we can also see that they download other kind of elements. So in that case, we're still measuring that. But I'm a true believer that when they then have the feeling that you can provide value or they generate questions, because when I read these papers or white papers or one-pagers, I usually have questions, and that's the moment I reach out to, someone from a company that I read the paper about. So in that case, then they come to you. So it's more like a demand generation campaign. So you you basically generate demand, so people come to you with questions. I think that's a much stronger kind of base to start your customer journey or your lead journey until like a signature. So that's how we see it. In terms of how you measure that, of course, the number of leads, it says something. But on the other hand, if someone fills in an email, they leave their email address in a contact form, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to buy. So except for only the people that come in, because for example, if you have someone that fills in a form and comes via Google because they have a need, then I would say it's a qualified lead. But on the other hand, with the tools and marketing automation, there's like a big opportunity because you can track basically the whole kind of funnel or the journey from the first contact point until the signature. So in that 2 years, you can basically nurture down them towards like becoming buying ready. And that's where we do the measurement. So how many times people interact, you can start a personal conversation with them because you see, for example, that they opened up, 20 times the email, that they downloaded the white papers. They didn't need to leave their email address because it's open and we can already track that. And one additional point, and I think that's one of the most important points, is brand measurement. So usually when we start working with a client, we do like a baseline measurement where we send like a anonymous survey, and we do it usually via display, so you can just click on it. And we do like a survey in terms of brand names, in terms of, for for example, services. So we have like a question, well, you're looking for this service, which kind of companies would you, for example, approach? In that way, we have like our 0 point. And then from there, when we start advertising, we start sharing relevant content in, a quarter to 6 months. We do another analysis, and then you can see the uplift in brand awareness level. And you can see the uplift also in preference. So those kind of measurements, it's like the new way of thinking besides, of course, leads, because I think that a lot of marketers also force for new leads. But I think there's much more value in the people that you already have in your database and nurture them down towards the ready to buy state than just capturing new leads.
So would that be a net promoter score or something similar? What would you call it? A brand preference index of some type?
Yeah, brand preference index indeed. So you have on the one side, you have like a brand awareness. So if they know, of course, about your brand, and let's be honest, if you're like one of the big CDMOs, very famous, then it's a little bit different. But then you have like for specific services, you can also ask which kind of brand preference you have, and I think that's a fairly important measure to see, how people look at your brand. And it's of course anonymous, so they don't know for which of the brands it is.
Interesting. You've touched a bit already on some of the different platforms which there's some success with. It feels like it's such a fast changing landscape with AI disrupting search and how people are using things. LinkedIn feels, as you say, very full. There's a lot of noise there. What would you see as being the most important channels, and are there particular opportunities which are exciting at the moment that you're investigating?
Yeah, it's always changing. So landscape is always changing for us, or basically if we look at 2025, one of the things we see is, of course, that the most important platform stays LinkedIn. So do business where business is done. It's LinkedIn, but you need to be very relevant. We also see, for example, for LinkedIn, that it has now the feature like the TikTok video, so you can just scroll in videos. So if you can create personalized videos, and I would recommend people that are listening, like business developers, or just take a short video, explain something about the trend that you see yourself, post it on LinkedIn, and you will see it yourself. It's going to be distributed quite broadly because that's where LinkedIn wants to go. Another trend is that they try to push you a little bit more towards these personal videos rather than the company videos. Another platform stays, of course, like search engines. So, of course, Google. We also see a lot of opportunity for Bing. So that's the other search engine for Microsoft. Of course, when people are searching, they have a need. So that's of course important. Would definitely recommend display advertising as there as well, because it's very cost efficient compared to, for example, LinkedIn. There you can also use the geo targeting, and of course email marketing. Of course, although I know we're 16 days in January in 2025, not sure about how many emails you received. Look, I got a few.
A few, yeah.
But don't overload, but be very precise, relevant, and maybe do it more on a personal note rather than just a company email that you send out every month, that you have, like, as I mentioned, very segmented kind of emails that are very tailor-made. Say, hey, in this specific industry, we learned this. How does that apply? So I think those are the main platforms that we focus on. Additionally, what we see is that in terms of physical events, companies are investing more in fewer events. So being in more specific events. So what we do there, or what I would recommend, is do roadshow marketing. So if you're attending an event, you invest in a booth, then you could also use digital marketing in terms of advertising to make sure that you also boost traffic to your booth, or if you have a speaker slot, those kind of things. There are quite some tactics there as well that you could utilize.
I completely agree. I think that's definitely a mistake I think people make, is just turning up at an event, exhibiting, and thinking people are just going to walk by and see them. To me, an event should be like the high point of engagement, but also the high point of like a campaign, and that could be like a 3-month campaign, which is like warming people up towards it.
Yeah, also inviting directly via LinkedIn, via email, and also, of course, we tested it a couple of times that we have banners on Google and LinkedIn with, for example, QR code. If you make a screenshot of the QR code, go to the booth, you get a freebie, and it works. So people see. So that's to make it measurable, right? I can also imagine that when you invest in these kind of things, it also should be measurable. But yeah, you know that everyone is in a specific state, so they're I don't know, they're really open for information. They want to learn more, so that's also why we think that those are the good moments to draw attention for your brand.
Thank you. One final question for you, Maurice. Is there something which, one mistake, let's say, that you see again and again? What's the big mistake that marketers in pharma keep on making, and you wish it would stop?
I would say that using ads, pushing it to a suboptimal website. So if I look still at websites, even from CDMOs, especially when I look at websites of CDMOs, they have a broad service portfolio. And they have multiple kind of target audiences that need to land on a specific website. So I think if I would need to choose one, is pushing a lot of traffic to a suboptimal website. Because in that sense, it's you attract a lot of leads, but then they land on a landing page that is not working. That's maybe one.
Putting water in a leaky bucket.
Yeah, I think so. So there's so much to optimize in websites. If I generally look at websites of CDMOs or CROs or service providers that have technical kind of services, I found that all the websites are very difficult to navigate, and it could be optimized. But yeah, that's one of the things. Maybe the most important thing, well, maybe that's the point. It's that not starting with the target audience in mind. So when you start a campaign, when you start your whole strategy for 2025, people should start with the deep dive in their buyer personas. Otherwise, you're developing a campaign that will not be effective. I think that are the 2 points. I'm not sure. I was thinking about these 2 points. I'm not sure if I can decide which is more important. I would say that the second one. So if you don't start with the target audience in mind, you will not have a campaign that will be successful or effective.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you so much. You're going to kindly share the niche demand preference model, so we can put it on our website. So if anyone wants to find out more, they can go to that. And of course, your website, scientialmarketing.com. Thank you so much. Look forward to meeting you at CDMO Live.
Yes, likewise, Nick. Thank you.
Experience the future of contract manufacturing at CDMO Live 2025. Join us at the World Trade Center Rotterdam on May the 7th and 8th, 2025 for an exclusive event that brings together the sharpest minds in biopharma outsourcing. For 2 days filled with market insights, best practices and partnering. So head to cdmolive.com to download the agenda and to book your ticket.